This is Mike Madrid, and you're listening to Red County, Blue County, Orange County, produced by UC Irvine School of Social Ecology. The turn of the century was a time of extraordinary change. Vibrant new economies and industries were emanating and popping up all over Orange County as they were all over California. We were moving rapidly away from the older industries like real estate, agriculture, and entertainment, and barreling down into a new future where things like the internet made the impossible possible every day. The county began to see an influx of higher tech, higher skilled, more college-educated workers who brought along with them a more progressive view of the world. In fact, social issues became just as important for these more highly educated workers as was the fiscal conservatism that was primary in the minds of so many Orange County voters just a decade before. Gene Pasco, who covered Orange County for the Los Angeles Times and the Orange County Register at the time, walks us through some of those changes.
Well, I think the high tech's been tremendously important, not only for Orange County, but for California as a whole. And I think there was a sense that Republicans had more of an entrepreneurial spirit, if you will. So Republicans would support high-tech industries and things like that. I mean, Dana Rohrabacher, when he was in Congress, kind of Bob Light, if you will, one of his big, very popular initiatives was to protect intellectual property from getting taken overseas improperly. And so for a long time, I think there was a lot of synergy between high-tech and Republicans. I think nationally, unfortunately, we've got into a lot of, as you say, identity politics, and there's kind of a thought of, well, we're for you if you're for us, but if we sense you're against us, now we're going to be against you. And so there was a lot of folks in Silicon Valley that were backing Democrats. And I think there was a thought, okay, well, these guys are now our enemy, so we're going to crack down on them. We're going to repeal Section 230. We're going to go in and change the rules because we don't like how they're using it. And we think that they are manipulating folks to back people that we don't like. And that only goes so far because eventually facts matter, and people look at, okay, well, what really happened? There's a lot of innovation, and so I think people they're looking to elected officials that are going to protect entrepreneurs and innovators, because there's a lot of theft that goes on. This whole AI issue is going to be interesting to watch how the parties kind of react to that. And then the whole other dynamic going on in Orange County is you've got 23% no party preference. You have a huge percentage of self-described independents, and these are folks that are going to they're looking at how not just at party labels, but how this particular candidate is going to react with the issue that's really important to me. And so I think that's where a lot of the tech folks have come from, because they're looking for government to help them flourish in a way that they see as benefiting society. They don't want government coming in and bigfooting and saying, well, we don't like how you're running your private business, so we're gonna intervene. And that sense of government intervention against private business, that is so antithetical to kind of the traditional Republican approach, which is, let's use government to help like Reagan, the lift all the boats. And so I think that is impacting tech, and as tech becomes more important in Orange County, they're going to be looking to the party that is responding the best. And right now, it's not the Republican Party, because at least the messages coming in from the national folks, people now have access to the internet. There's so much more information that's coming in, and they're able to see, what the national candidates are doing and saying. How does that impact where I lived, what the state candidates are doing, what the local folks are doing. And I think a lot of folks are just getting overwhelmed with, information vomit, right? And so for a lot of people, they just pull back. It's like, I can't deal with it. I was involved in politics, but I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to run. I'm not going to think about running. And it has a dampening effect over not only voter participation, but candidate recruitment.
Offering her perspective is former Congresswoman Loretta Sanchez. When the economy started shifting from the Cold War industry to more high tech, did that change the business community?
It did.
You saw
did change
different
the
type
business.
of CEO,
yes.
a different
You saw
type...
a different type of CEO, and the old guys died. The guys who headed up the companies, they're all gone. Carl Karcher and all these guys, they died. And the new guys were not from here. The new guys were Stanford people or MIT people or Northwestern people, and they came to live here, and they came to start up the businesses or to take over a startup. And so they're outsiders. Very few of them grew up here in Orange County, and very few of them had the mentality that pioneer, I made it myself, this is the way we've always done it, we're keeping our money, stay away from me type of guy.
They were less Republican, too.
Yeah.
They're a lot more open to Democrats or apolitical entirely.
Yes.
Is the country going through today what Orange County was going through in the mid-late 90s?
Yeah, there was this always a kind of a clash going on. And I think today we see the same thing. We see a much more divided country. And maybe it's because those who have been underrepresented for a long time and have had no voice are trying to speak up and trying to find their voice. So in that sense, maybe it's the same. But I think there are other very difficult things going on in our country. Mostly, I think today's divisions have to do really in a lot of ways with the haves and the have-nots. Mm-hmm. I mean, we have lost so much of our middle class, and we've made so many have-nots in a lot of ways, or people feel like they're a have-not.
Was that similar to what you were seeing in Orange County when you first ran, or is it different?
It was about the same. I mean, there were the underrepresented people, there were the people without the voice. Those are typically people that don't have a lot of money and are struggling. So in that sense, it was. But I think it's an even stronger socioeconomic issue that we see across the country. And unfortunately, because of some of the politicians that we've seen bubble up to the top, it's more of a kind of a bigotry, and it's just more allowable to say to have more nastiness spoken and pointed out, and to blame people significantly more than even what we saw in Orange County.
From its deep Reagan-led Republican roots to a time when a blue wave swept Democrats into every congressional office in the county, Orange County finds itself on the precipice of a new type of politics. A unique convergence of ethnic, educational, class, and partisan shifts that make the county the perfect laboratory for what the country's future is becoming. The traditional stereotypes of ethnic politics are unwinding as assimilation changes both the Latino and Vietnamese communities. The educational divide that is transforming the country is also happening here. But Orange County is unique in that it provides the first glimpse of college-educated, non-white voters, motivated not by the traditional racial and ethnic stereotypes of the past, nor the economic class model we associate with a typical second and third generation immigrant group, but by cultural considerations. I sat down with Los Angeles Times columnist Gustavo Arellano to hear more about these shifting politics in Orange County. Is ethnicity changing in the way that we politicize?
I think so, and it used to be more factional, but I especially think with young people, and you saw this in Anaheim, or not in Anaheim, in Los Angeles with the elections of Ulises Hernandez and Hugo Soto Martinez. These were Latinos, young Mexican American candidates who did not go through the traditional ways of politics, didn't join any machine. Ulises was, DSA. She ran against Gil Cedillo, the grand Chicanosaurus, who, legend in his own right, but he was past his time. And Gil, to his dying day, will say it's hipster white people who voted Ulises in. No, that shows how out of tune Gil was. It was young, progressive Latinos who said, we don't want someone like Gil. Hugo Soto Martinez beat an incumbent. He came through union power. He was a member of Unite Here Local. He was an organizer for Unite Here Local 11 for years. And so labor, especially in Los Angeles, has become its own thing, and it has its own ideology. And you saw this during hot labor summer, where you had janitors from the school board, from SEIU Local 99. So the janitors and custodians and all the workers at the LAUSD, they're marching right alongside SAG-AFTRA members, WGA members. So it's like the Latinos, the SEIU, mostly Latinos, working class, going with, actors and writers. So it's like this multicultural coalition built on ideology and not on ethnic identity. Anyone who tries to...
new.
Yeah, yes, in a way. Because you think about the multicultural coalitions of Los Angeles, Ed Roybal, the Todd Bradleys, they united under getting representation, ethnic representation. Okay, it's time for us to get a Jewish candidate in there. Okay, it's time to get a Latino candidate in there. Okay, it's time to get a Black candidate in there. Now, it is very much about ideology. In South Los Angeles, in my series for the LA Times, I talked about Assembly District 57, where probably for the first time in 60 years, you're going to have a Latino represent the majority of South LA in a district. Because you have the top three candidates are Latinos: Efren Martinez, Shadé El-Wahari, and Dulce Vasquez. Exactly. And all of them, they're not running as quote unquote Latinos. Right. They're running as no, we're representing South Los Angeles. Yeah. We know South Los Angeles. So I call it, we're now in our post-Latino era, where being Latino is no longer the advantage that it used to be, nor is it necessarily the disadvantage that it also used to be as well.
Is that a sign of maturation?
Assimilation, maturation, voters. I would say voters are getting smarter. Again, people who look like you, they'll be your worst enemy. If you only blindly look to be supported by people who look like you, you're going to be screwed one way or another. And I learned that lesson early on. Yeah. There was a time where it was not cool to say that. So I don't want to say I was vindicated, because obviously I didn't create that whole idea. But I think it's a better place for us to be voting actually on what candidates represent, what candidates promise to bring you politically, as opposed to what they represent ethnically.
Are we becoming, as Latinos, what we rallied and organized against?
Absolutely. Yeah, we're all a bunch of sellouts now. We don't care about the Latino community anymore. Right. And I think that's a good thing. We should care. I've always said we should be class warriors, not race warriors. The people who live in the Mexican Beverly Hills, Downey, I do not, their views and their needs do not represent the views and needs of the people that I came from, working class Latinos. Middle class Latinos and working class Latinos, we're going to care about completely different things. I still care very much about immigration, because I have friends and family members who remain undocumented. If you're third, fourth generation, you're not going to care about that at all. So am I going to be appealing to you because you're Latino, or am I going to try to be appealing to white, leftist white folks who might care a little bit more than the immigration, than vendidos about the immigration dilemma?
And what's the answer?
I'm going to go with the people who are ideologically like me more than the people who are ethnically like me. Always.
Joining me now is California State Senator Tom Umberg, a Democrat who has witnessed this county's transformation over the past 4 decades. Was it just racial and economic transformation, or what was it?
No, I think issues. I think issues also. The predominance of environmental issues. The choice issue wasn't as profound in 2000. That was, Roe versus Wade was still law of the land, so it wasn't quite as profound. But I also think that the education became more important. There were some cultural war issues still, but in 1990, in whatever sector you were involved in, whether it was business or politics or even just social settings, was overwhelmingly Republican. Overwhelmingly, people didn't want to say. I had people come up to me all the time and whisper, "I'm Democrat. Don't tell my spouse," kind of thing. And you may remember folks who, if you wanted to be a success, you wanted to be a judge. If you wanted to be successful in business, you were a Republican. That was the culture of the time. By 2018, that had dramatically changed, and you could still be a success in all those areas, even if you weren't a Republican.
How has the Republican Party changed, or has it?
I do think that that it has swung back and forth. The Republican Party was I thought, very tribal in 1990, but there were fights, inter-party fights. Then it became much more sort of business economically oriented. And I think now you see they're much more culturally oriented in Orange County. I mean, you see these culture wars in Huntington Beach. You see these culture wars different places concerning, issues that were, nobody was talking about, whether libraries should be removing books. There weren't big issues about what flags you were flying in front of City Hall. There weren't big issues about, another issue that actually emerged quickly and fairly profoundly in Orange County is the issue concerning what some folks refer to as gay rights, or issues concerning equal rights for the LGBTQ community. I remember in my first election that I had said early on I supported a bill that said that there could not be discrimination in housing and employment based on sexual orientation. And I just thought it was sort of a off-the-cuff comment early on. I just thought that was how things should be. And the gay community coalesced around our campaign. It was amazing. We became a magnet for lots of folks who were interested in equal rights. And that, I think, when you're asking about changes, that's also, it's not a cutting edge issue so much anymore. I mean, the issue as to whether or not someone should be discriminated in housing or employment because of their sexual orientation. I mean, that's not a thing anymore, but it was a big thing back then, a really big thing back then.
Here's more of my sit down with Jean Pasco to talk about the changing dynamics of Orange County.
The politics have shifted again away from kind of developer Republicans that are interested in government. And now I think it's more of a kind of a mix, because you still have some aerospace, you have biotech, which is huge. You've got, Blizzard's there with gaming, a lot of the technology industries, particularly medical technologies and other stuff. So you've got a diversification of the economy in Orange County, which is going to percolate up for the folks that are interested in putting money into politics and kind of where they want to go with it. And what we've seen, at least what I've seen in watching Orange County, is we're not seeing the folks that are interested in kind of the cult of personality that you see in the rest of the country. I think it's changing. It's not as monolithic with kind of the major political juice. Now it's more spread out, and people are coming at politics with more individualized wants. Hey, we need this, we need that, and a sense that among the voters, people are used to Orange County is a great place to live. I mean, there's so much wonderfulness about it. Why would you be stuck in all this negativity and the us versus them stuff? I mean, that's resonated in places, but I think voters generally are looking for a government that's responsive, listens to them, and that they can connect with, and they don't feel like these people are not looking out for me.
In the late 90s and early 2000s, the influx of high-growth, high-tech companies transformed Orange County's workforce from blue-collar to white-collar. But that divide brought more than just income disparities. It was college-educated voters who brought a very different cultural perspective, a unique worldview that contrasted sharply with their blue-collar neighbors. These different perspectives on the world introduced a more acerbic, combative type of politics, and the rise of performative politicians in the modern era began, in many ways, here in Orange County. Bob Dornan being the most specific example of that change. Meanwhile, Latino and Asian voters were breaking away from traditional ethnic voting patterns. They were beginning to redefine what the whole concept of minority voters actually were. In just a decade, the political landscape in Orange County was entirely transformed, less shifting away from its conservative roots and more emerging as something entirely new. In our next and final episode, we'll explore modern-day Orange County and how it emerged as the largest purple county in the nation. Join us next time on Red County, Blue County, Orange County. You've been listening to Red County, Blue County, Orange County, a podcast series produced by UC Irvine School of Social Ecology. Thanks to all of our guests for appearing on this podcast to help us dissect what makes Orange County so unique. I'm Mike Madrid, and I invite you to subscribe to this podcast and check out our series at sites, sites.uci.edu/Orange County.